just go ahead and set it up where we are.
All right, well, we're here today to document the location spot of Leo Westerholm, who is a combat medic for the 101st Airborne. He jumped at just after midnight on June 6th and landed right here in this very region, literally about 100 yards from where we're standing out in that direction there. At the time that he jumped, this was all flooded. The Germans had flooded most every one of these little lowland areas to make it much more difficult for any troops and make it more impassable for the Allies if they ever did land in the Normandy Peninsula. So where we're standing now, I've got an account by Leo. We interviewed Leo for the Veterans History Project probably back in 2005, so 2004. And what we've got is a couple of his accounts of actually making the trip back here in 1999, 55 years after he was captured. Today is June 5th, 2022, and this is just a tribute to Leo here. So this is in Leo's own words. "Oh, I forgot, no, never on that September day of 1999, just 55 years after my baptism into the roarish, hellish confusion of combat, was the most stunning day of my life. My questions as I landed half submerged in swampy water and cold as the devil, I thought to myself, why am I here? For the next 368 days, I asked myself no more. You see, I had volunteered to join the paratroopers some 19 months previous, and now it was time for me to pay off my debt. In September of '99, I returned to Normandy with 40 other old paratroopers of 1944 vintage. We were all bent and with a stumbling walk and an uneasy gait to mull over what we had done in 1944. It was a silent mulling, just looking and seeing in our memories all the faces of our own dead comrades. And I asked God, why did you spare me? So what I'll do now, he talks about how they got here, going through Holland and Bastogne, people that he met. Then he meets a guy from the BBC who's been studying all the British and American paratrooper operations in the area. And he asked him if he could take him to his spot where he was captured. And he showed him a military map and could he find that spot? So he did. And this is what he wrote. He said, 5 minutes later, he drove me 5 miles south from their location that they were at the time, then 8 miles west, then 1 mile north, 1 mile east, over a back road, and the last half mile over a cow trail.
Yeah, which we just took. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, he took me right to it. To my amazement, Joe had at last put me near the spot where I touched down in Normandy 55 years ago. First, I looked to the west, to the position the enemy had held. That would be right over there.
Yep.
That is the old blockhouse there. That is a German bunker that's still here to this day. And that's the one that they would have been using to capture Leo and fire upon him.
So this is the blockhouse here. They would have had a garrison there. They would have had men. And his bad luck was such that just a few hundred yards to the east is where he landed in this flooded field.
He says, then I turned around and looked east over the swamp.
Yep.
The sun was just about setting for the day and an eerie glow lay over the swamp. It was near 7 miles across that area to the town of Carentan, which is off in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
There goes the C-135 over there.
Yeah.
Which stood out like a white oasis. Now I understood why I'm still here and alive. I could have been dropped further into the swamp, but the Air Force dropped me about 150 feet out into the water from the levee. We're standing on the levee right now. On one side, water from belly deep and up. On the other side, a German anti-aircraft position on the land side. I walked over to the levee from the trail about 40 feet, and I looked east, then west, then east across the swamp. Yes, I thought of Mother and Dad, and I'm glad Mother never knew what I had gotten myself into for joining the paratroopers. It was a bleak and forbidding swamp. An eerie feeling came over me as I sat down on the levee bank. I cried. Joe left me alone for about 5 minutes, and I let it all out. I bawled like a bull. It was still a cold and dark and unfriendly place, a most lonely and ugly swamp. Let one say no more. Had a good talk with him on that part of my life, asking him if he could get me out of this alive. I would forever do his calling. As it was getting dark and the chill of the place still tried to penetrate me, I walked up to Joe. I suppose I had wet red eyes, and I smiled at Joe and thanked him for his help and understanding to find this spot. He said, I guess you feel better now. I hugged him, and Joe said, "Thanks, Yank, for what you and your fellow troopers did for us Limeys back in 1944. I'm closing, and all I can say, good God, thanks a million for allowing me to be kind to any fellow man, whether a comrade in arms or any one of the Germans, for their meanness perpetrated upon me by my enemy as a prisoner. Let me forever be appreciative to all of you, my God, that my God has done for me. Give me many more little things I can do for some unfortunate child of yours, whether he or she is older or younger than me."
And what's amazing is, based on the account that you just read, this levee that we're standing on right here that parallels this canal could very well have been the place when they came back that he stopped and had that moment.
Yes.
We're that close.
Yes.
What I'd like to do is just read a little bit about how he got to this place and got captured. So let's go and flip camera. And what would be cool, I don't know if you can do this or not, can you get it so the field's behind me? Okay. So this is another account by Leo Westerholm. Ryan just read one about him coming back in 94, was it?
99.
99, thank you. But this account here is about how he got here in this field behind us on D-Day. So he writes here that basically on June 5th, because they landed early in the morning of June 6th, and as Ryan already mentioned, today is June 5th, 2022. He writes that as the groups were marching out to their planes to load up, the bands were playing "The Yanks Are Coming," and the Air Force boys gave us a real yell. They basically were telling them, give them hell, Yanks." Upon reaching the plane, we got out our parachutes, looked them over for any mistakes that they may have had. Captain Mitchell reads out some last-minute instructions, also a few letters from the generals. At about 10 p.m., General Eisenhower came up to their plane, and boy, he actually shook hands with the general, had a chance to talk to him. So that's something that there's a lot of footage on, Eisenhower going to the 101st in particular, and Leo was one of the fortunate men to have actually met General Eisenhower. Wow. Then he talks about things that you may have read about quite a bit in books as well, in movies, and he said, "Man, what a load of junk we had to hide all over ourselves. I must have weighed about 350 pounds with all my kits and bags and chutes. But finally at about 10:58 p.m. we take off from England, and believe me, I thought for a while that poor little C-47 wouldn't make it. But she did. I think every man said a little prayer for the C-37, C-47, thank you, to take off okay. The trip was rather rough. At about 12:30, so now we're talking about the next day, I just can't hold it any longer, so I let it go off to my side. P.S. I vomited." So he was one of many soldiers, and I probably would have been one of them as well, where there's so much stress, so much anxiety, so much unknown, right? It's hard for the body to kind of process all that, and there's lots of accounts of paratroopers walking out of the C-47s with the vomit making the floor slick for some of the men to go across. On his way out, he takes a peep out the window, but he can't see anything. And then I began to feel as if I didn't care what was out there. He was trying to overcome his fear. All I wanted for us was get to the DZ, the drop zone, and get it over with. And around 1 a.m., he said that he thinks he hit the coast of France. And he said, "How do you know that, or how would I know that?" Because there was flak and more flak. And that's another thing that we hear and read a lot about these soldiers flying over, is how many losses that they had to flak. And then the red light came on, and very soon the green light, and we rushed and started for what we all had been waiting for. So you can well imagine what, why, and where we were going. Of course, it was here. To France, question mark. All is suddenly very quiet again. This is what happens when they jump out of the plane. It's captured very well in Band of Brothers, and we've also had a chance to talk to the jump team here, and they talk about that sensation of utter noise and chaos in the plane. And then when they jump out, it goes to dead silent. He says that it's very quiet, but he sees a really beautiful display of fireworks, just like the 4th of July. But I can't seem to see the ground. No, it can't be water splash, he writes. It is only about 4 feet deep, and I soon came to the conclusion that I'm in a swamp, and that swamp is right behind us. This would have been flooded back then. As Ryan mentioned, there's a levee right behind us. And this is the area a few hundred yards to our east where we're standing, where he landed, as he describes, in 4 feet of water. I soon came to the conclusion I was in a swamp, and after getting out of my harness and my Mae West, I started for the shore some 500 yards distance, which would have been to the west, which is where the blockhouse still stands to this day behind us. I can hear a lot of shouting and shooting and whatnot in the direction that I was proceeding, and he would have, because he was proceeding towards, unbeknownst to him, because of all the missed drops, towards the garrison at that blockhouse and bunker. When I got within 10 yards of the bank, I got the darndest shock of my life. And I think this is the bank, okay, right here. I got the darndest shock in my life up to this date. Soon, a son of a Jerry gave me a good burst just about right down my mouth. I became an alligator in no time short, and I began to swim and crawl right back to where I started from, back out east. Next, I proceeded up the swamp some 1,000 yards, running over plenty of canals. There's a canal right here.
Yep.
And for those who, oh yeah, look at that. This is almost like divine intervention, providence.
Thank you, Leo. One of those cosmic moments that we've talked about so much.
We didn't plan this, and that modern day transport plane that drops paratroopers in the battle to this day had invasion stripes on it, if you can't see that in the photograph. So this wraps up with him basically saying that as he went to the swamp, there's plenty of canals, which made it too darn deep to wade. When he got near the shore, he heard a hell of a commotion across the swamp. As I step up on dry land, some smart aleck shoots first and asks questions later, but he never waited for the answer. And in a couple of minutes, I proceed again and only get a little ways when I see that I've walked into a trap, or should I say I walked into some German-occupied position. I soon find out I can't walk out like I walked in. It was only a matter of minutes until they came out from cover to get me. And that was actually what they did. 30 minutes or so, I became a prisoner of war. Right here is where it all happened, right out in that field. When he talks about it being flooded, it was. The water table's very high here. It's lousy with canals. He wouldn't have seen those canals until he walked from 4 feet of water to 8 feet of water or more. This is amazing.
This is hallowed ground.
It is hallowed ground. Can you believe